Not every investigation begins with a theory. Some begin with something that shouldn't exist. A towering figure caught in a photograph. Massive footprints where no one should have been. Knocks echoing through the trees, followed by silence. These weren't just stories. They were moments that left investigators searching for answers. Tonight, we're breaking down 6 Sasquatch encounters that may change the way you see the wilderness. Because when the forest answers back, something may already be watching. The team is deep in the woods when an unsettling thought suddenly crosses their minds. What if they keep searching and uncover something they were never meant to find? Then, a massive rock among the trees raises even more questions. An X is clearly marked across its surface, while strange patterns cover the surrounding rocks and trees. The deeper they look, the less ordinary the area seems. Nothing about the location feels right, and after spending hours there, the team still has no idea what else may be hidden nearby. Then, without warning, the forest gives them another reason to stop. And every unanswered question makes the forest feel more alive with each passing minute.
I see it now. I don't want to come back.
That is Fear Rock's daddy right here.
Wow.
This is a big rock.
Look at the X on top of it.
Yeah, look at the trees and stuff on it. What the heck? I mean, guys, how long have we been here?
Yeah, there's nothing normal about any of this over here.
Gosh, I wish I'd do it one more time. Who's got it? Who's got it?
Hold my...
A twisted tree stands out among the others, but before the team can examine it, a deep growl suddenly tears through the darkness. Everyone freezes. The sound has come from behind them, somewhere along the path they had just traveled. They turn toward the trees, searching for any sign of movement, but the forest remains completely still. No figure appears, no branches move, only the silence remains. Whatever made that sound is somewhere nearby, and the team may have walked much closer to it than they realize.
Did you hear that? That sounded like a growl.
Which way?
It's way off over where we just come from.
Yeah.
I don't like that camera angle I was having just now.
Then, something suddenly flies through the darkness. The distance it covers is impossible to ignore, and the team from Sasquatch Watchers has no idea where it came from. Could someone be hidden among the trees, deliberately launching objects in their direction, or is something else trying to force them away? Before anyone can reach an answer, another object cuts through the forest. The team barely has time to react. This is no longer a strange noise coming from somewhere in the shadows. Something is sending objects deep into the woods with incredible force, and the next one could come from anywhere.
What'd you hear?
There's something just letting her loose. You're good.
I'll hold a little bit. Take turns.
Oh, you're good. I still think something was shooting at it.
I do too.
I mean, somebody could have been terrified. I don't know.
I'm leaning towards your theory.
Yeah, I do.
Well, let's try to... That was good.
Farther down the road, another strange moment unfolds. A sudden burst of noise races through the darkness, sounding almost like a dog running and barking somewhere ahead. Then it stops. The silence is immediate. Before the team can understand what they just heard, a glowing shape appears in the middle of the trail. Everyone focuses on the same spot, trying to identify it, but the strange light offers no clear answer. For a moment, the entire road seems to disappear around that unexplained shape. Something is standing or glowing out there in the darkness, and the team has no idea what they are looking at.
Was it Bigfoot or Dogman though?
I don't know. We got bluff charged by something imitating something vicious because that scared me to death. I haven't been that scared since the old run days at Rex's.
I'm gonna be totally honest with y'all. You know what it sound like? The movement?
Hmm.
It sounded like something bipedal on 2 legs, running and barking like a dog.
Yeah.
Did you not hear that? I'm sure the camera picked
Yeah,
it
it's
up.
terrifying.
People in the chat watching, comment and tell us if you heard the same thing we did about that.
Then, the sound from the trail becomes even more disturbing. The movement seems to belong to something running upright on 2 legs, yet the noise coming from the darkness sounds like a dog barking. The combination makes no sense. The team hears the strange movement again, and the sound seems close enough to send a chill through the group. Whatever is traveling through the darkness is moving quickly, but its strange rhythm makes it impossible to identify. Nothing about the sound matches what the team expects to hear from an ordinary animal in the woods.
This is bad juju.
Very bad juju.
Jeepers.
Big dark shadow in the sky.
Jeepers creepers.
That one right there?
What the world?
Dark shadow
Hang on, let
in
me
the
get a
sky.
picture of this with my phone. Hold that real
You
quick.
hold me, hold something.
Hold on.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that awesome shoot with our phone. It's gotta get there.
That's
It's like a
right there.
stealth, something stealth.
Something's in the sky. And I
The
told you
mothership?
something just flew over my head.
The mothership?
I don't know.
Then the river erupts. A rock crashes into the water. Another follows. Then a third lands from a different direction. The team quickly realizes these are not stones sliding down the bank. Something is throwing them. But the situation becomes even more disturbing when the noise appears to shift away from the shore. Movement breaks across the water itself. The team watches as the river is disturbed again, yet nothing can be seen beneath the darkness. Whatever is causing it may be close enough to reach the water, powerful enough to hurl large rocks, and hidden well beyond the camera's view. And after everything that has happened, one final possibility makes the moment even more frustrating. The camera may not have been recording when it happened. What do you think was really happening in those woods?
Gonna do a 360 pan.
You alright with the rock?
Dude,
God, murder.
I just got hit with a f***ing rock.
One remarkable claim was enough to push the investigation into the unknown. John Johnson, a man deeply familiar with the wilderness, came forward with photographs he believed captured something impossible: a sasquatch moving through the forest. The images immediately grabbed Bobo's attention, raising questions that demanded answers. If the photographs were real, they could represent one of the most fascinating discoveries in the search for Sasquatch. For years, researchers had searched through countless forests, following rumors, eyewitness accounts, and unexplained evidence. But very few cases created the same level of curiosity as this mysterious photograph. With the mystery unfolding, the team ventured deep into the wilderness, determined to discover what was truly hidden among the trees. And the deeper they went, the more important every detail in that single image became.
We're going to meet up with a guy named John Johnson. He's got these photographs of what he says is a Sasquatch. Bobo says he thinks this is real. At least we have to go check this out. No matter what happens with this photo, this is a great place for us to come.
The moment they entered Humboldt County, they stepped into the heart of the Bigfoot mystery. Towering coast redwoods surrounded them, rising hundreds of feet above the forest floor and creating a landscape unlike anywhere else on Earth. This legendary wilderness, featured on Animal Planet's exploration of Bigfoot, is where countless sightings, stories, and unanswered questions continue to shape the mystery. Along the highways, reminders of the creature appear everywhere. Bigfoot signs, displays, and symbols showing why many believe this ancient forest is the true home of the legend. This is where the search for Bigfoot truly comes alive.
On the northeast corner of the county, now we're going to the southwest. This is Coast Redwoods. It's a lot different. I think it's a lot prettier.
It is good to be back in Humboldt County. When people around the world think of Bigfoot, they think of this location. Driving down the highway, seeing 300-foot redwoods, and you can't go far without seeing some posters, some signs, some carving out of a tree turned into Bigfoot. This is Bigfoot's home, if anywhere.
A mysterious photograph with a story unlike any other had captured everyone's attention. The image came from a man who claimed he had photographed a Bigfoot in the wild, but the details surrounding the moment remained unclear. Where exactly was the figure standing? How far away was it? And how large was it in reality? With so many unanswered questions surrounding the photo, the team set out to recreate the scene and uncover what was truly hidden within the image.
I got a call from a good buddy of mine last summer whose cousin knew a guy that took photos of a Bigfoot. We tried to do a recreation set up where he saw it, but I never could figure out where it was, how big it was. And with the team here, I think we get lined up exactly and figure out what this photo really is.
John welcomed the team into the remote forest, where he claimed he encountered something that defied explanation. As they stood among the towering trees, he retraced the moment when an ordinary day turned into a terrifying mystery. The forest grew unnaturally quiet, a strange presence surrounded him, and movement deep in the woods caught his attention. He lifted his camera, focused on the figure ahead, and captured what he believed was a Bigfoot hiding within the wilderness. For only a few seconds, the camera recorded what could have been one of the most important moments of his life.
Hey, John, thanks for meeting us, man.
We need to rule out that there's no possibility that that's a stump or any other type of object. We need to make sure all other possibilities are eliminated.
So this is the location.
Yeah, I was up in this tree in this fork of it.
Why don't you run us through exactly what happened that day, where the thing was moving around and all that stuff?
Okay. Well, I come out here just to get away from everything, right? It just got all quiet, just eerie kind of feeling. Turning to leave, and I seen something. I didn't know what it was at first. I took my camera out, and I seen it was a Bigfoot.
John's photograph was about to face its most detailed examination yet. From the original tree position, the team recreated the scene, matching the angle, distance, and perspective captured in the image. But the closer they looked, the stranger the results became. The figure in the photograph appeared significantly larger than Bobo, standing in the same area, and when the images were compared side by side, the landscape revealed differences that made the encounter even more mysterious. Every measurement raised another question instead of providing a clear answer.
Okay, Clip, it's somewhere right in here.
As far as the size goes, is Bobo much smaller, a little smaller, or how would you judge it?
He's a lot smaller.
He's a lot smaller?
Yeah.
You're apparently a lot smaller than what he saw.
Copy.
There's nothing over there that
Could be confused as the Sasquatch in the photograph.
photograph, is there?
No, it's completely clear right here.
Here we have two photographs side by side. Your original with one of Bobo's recreations.
Well, to me, it's quite readily apparent that this is not the same place. Because you see, this one is today, and this stump wouldn't have gotten itself there since August of last year, and this stump is clearly not here.
The photograph may never reveal all its secrets, but the mystery surrounding this forest continues to grow. While Bobo and the team remained uncertain about what appeared in the image, they couldn't deny the strange history surrounding this remote wilderness. With multiple sightings reported near the same location, the area continues to fuel the legend of Sasquatch. Whether the photograph captured something extraordinary or something yet unexplained. The deep forests of Humboldt County remain a place where the search for Bigfoot lives on.
Team might not agree on that being a Sasquatch in the photo, but I know Squatches live here. This area is squatchy as hell, that's why I live here. I've had a lot of friends have Squatch sightings very close to this exact location.
What do you think? Did John capture a real Sasquatch, Or is there another explanation behind this mysterious photograph? Share your thoughts below. Until then, the search continues. In March 1967, in the quiet town of Fairhaven, Massachusetts, an ordinary moment turned into the beginning of a lifelong search for answers. Before becoming a respected paranormal researcher with over 4 decades of investigations behind him, Matt Moniz was just a young man who encountered something he could not explain. That mysterious event would stay with him for years, eventually leading him into the world of unexplained phenomena, where countless strange cases and impossible encounters would follow.
Hi, I'm Matt Moniz. I'm a local researcher in the Bridgewater Triangle. I'm the science advisor for the show Spooky South Coast. We've been on the air for the past 18 years. I've been researching the unexplained for over 40 years, and in that time I've come across a number of different unusual, paranormal, and extreme cases of the unexplained. I'll share with you the very first paranormal experience I ever had.
While driving through a quiet, remote area of southern Massachusetts, his mother experienced a moment that would become one of the strangest encounters of her life. As she made her way toward his father's childhood farm, she rounded a corner and suddenly noticed a mysterious figure standing near the roadside. At first, it looked like a person wearing a fur coat, but within seconds, everything changed. The figure suddenly rushed across the road, moving far faster than expected, forcing her to slam on the brakes. Then, in a shocking burst of movement, it struck the hood of the vehicle, jumped away, grabbed a nearby tree, and swung around to face her. With the driver's side window only inches away, she came face to face with something she could never explain, a case later covered by small-town monsters.
My mother, who was 9 months pregnant with me at that time, was traveling home to my father's childhood farm to pick him up. While she was traveling there, it is a rural area in southern Massachusetts, as she was rounding a corner, she saw what she thought was, and I quote, a hippie in a fur coat on the corner of the road. And as she rounded the corner to it, it darted across the road. She had to slam on her brakes. The thing actually slammed its hand on the hood and jumped off the road. And after it jumped off the road, it grabbed a tree, spun around and faced her, who is now stopped with the window to her driver's side right parallel with it.
She described the figure as something that looked human, but was clearly not. Tall, muscular, and covered in reddish hair, it had gray skin and dark fingernails. In a split second, the strange being stopped and locked eyes with her. For over a minute, they stood completely still, silently watching each other. She felt no immediate threat, but she knew she had witnessed something beyond explanation. A creature that seemed to exist between the human and the unknown. And when the figure finally disappeared, the encounter remained impossible to forget.
She described this thing as a red-haired, human-looking, but she said it wasn't completely human. She commonly would refer to it as a missing link. She said it had black fingernails, gray skin. It was very muscular and tall. She sat there looking at it for about a minute and a half, and it sat there looking at her. She didn't feel threatened, but she was able to see, number one, that it was male, that it was naked, and that it was covered in hair colored similar to an Irish setter. There was an Irish setter down the road from my grandfather's farm called Rusty, and she said it had Rusty's colored fur. That's what she would always refer to it as. So this is, like I said, before the famous Patterson and Gimlin film.
After nearly 2 decades in the Boston area, the researcher returned to their hometown of Hanson and began uncovering the hidden history behind the region's Native American connections. What started as a simple search soon led to the mysteries of the Bridgewater Triangle, a place surrounded by decades of unexplained encounters. As the investigation continued, past experiences began to make more sense, revealing a deeper connection to the strange events reported across the area. In 2014, they documented Bigfoot accounts from the region, but the number of reports continued to increase.
I lived in the Boston area for about 20 years, and when I moved back to my hometown of Hanson, when I started a family, I started wondering why everything was named after Native Americans in my town, and sent me on a deep dive into figuring out why. And at the same time, I learned about the Bridgewater Triangle, and I had a number of experiences growing up, and I kind of felt relieved when I heard about the Bridgewater Triangle because it seemed like a logical explanation for some of the crazy things that myself and my family had experienced. I published a book in 2014 about published accounts in the Bridgewater Triangle of Bigfoot. It's in the process of being revised because since then there has been so many more reports. When I initially wrote this, I call it more of a pamphlet because it wasn't that long because there was not that many stories at the time.
A shocking discovery on a secluded 10-acre property revealed a footprint unlike anything expected. A massive 19.5-inch track pressed into the ground. Far larger than any ordinary human print, it immediately raised questions about what could have left it behind. With no simple explanation available, the strange finding became another unsettling mystery, adding to the growing number of unexplained encounters connected to the unknown.
A friend of mine found 19.5-inch print in her yard, which is like 10 acres of private property, and nothing would surprise me,
While camping in the Bridgewater area, a peaceful night suddenly turned into a terrifying encounter. Without warning, something approached the tent and began tapping against the fabric from the outside. When the camper pulled open the flap, a massive face was staring back at them in the darkness. After a few tense moments, the figure moved away. But as it left, it grabbed the top of the tent, leaving behind a chilling mystery that defied explanation.
Where they were camping out in the Bridgewater area, this thing basically, even though it was a tent, it knocked on the tent, like touching it, tapping it, and they pulled open the flap to see this very large face staring back at them inside the tent. After a matter of few minutes, when they heard the thing walk off, literally just grabbed the top of the tent.
In the middle of the day, while searching for forgotten artifacts along Pine Street in Middleborough, a routine exploration turned into a terrifying encounter. As they investigated an old cellar hole near a historic marker, an unfamiliar presence emerged from the surrounding area. Suddenly, a deep, powerful sound erupted from the darkness, followed by the sight of a shadowy figure nearby. The noise was so intense, they felt it through their bodies. Even with their experience as Marines, they knew something was wrong, and they quickly abandoned the search.
Facts they could find. Off of a road called Pine Street in Middleborough, broad daylight, they were going by this area that had a rock with a plaque on it mentioning or dedicating to who had lived there prior. And they went to go look at, the cellar hole. As they were walking, a guttural sound, the way they put it, and a dark figure in the back. So much so that sound, they said, reverberated in their own chests. They said the sound was so loud and so threatening that they said, we're both Marines, we retreated. Now, for a Marine to retreat, that means there's something they think is serious, okay? And they said that they ran out like little schoolgirls.
After decades of unexplained encounters in the Bridgewater Triangle, one question still remains. What is truly hiding within this mysterious region? Let us know what you believe lies behind these chilling mysteries. Deep in the remote wilderness of Myakka State Park, Florida, James Hopkins walked into the woods expecting a normal night of camping. What happened next would become one of the strangest experiences of his life. An encounter he says he has never been able to fully explain. Growing up in Venice, Florida, James was familiar with the remote areas around Myakka. He spent years exploring its hidden trails, thick vegetation, and isolated landscapes, believing he knew the wilderness well. But one camping trip with his friends Andy and Brian would become a memory he could never forget. After following a trail nearly a mile into the forest, they reached a secluded clearing beneath a full moon. Then, the forest went silent. Moments later, a massive growl erupted from the darkness. James described it as something between a bear and a large predator, yet unlike anything he had ever heard. Whatever made that sound remained a mystery.
Hello, my name is James Hopkins. I'm here for a story that I haven't told many people. And it was an encounter out in Myakka State Park, Florida. As a kid growing up in Venice, Florida, on the weekends, I would like to go out to my friend Andy's house out in Myakka because there was nothing out there. It was out in the sticks, and we were able to drink and have a good time and not be harassed. So I ended up finding this trail one time. And it would go back into the woods, and we had a camping trip planned, me, Andy, and a guy named Brian. And the trail went like a mile, maybe back through these woods, and it opened up into a clearing, like a big round clearing. So we set up, we got all our stuff out there. It was a full moon, I do remember that. And then we heard a growl, this enormous growl. And the only way I can explain the sound of this growl, it was like a mixture between a bear and a big cat. It didn't sound like any one animal. It sounded like something completely we'd never heard before.
Whatever was hiding in the darkness had completely changed the feeling of the forest, and staying at the campsite was no longer an option. They quickly gathered their gear and began making their way back through the woods, moving one person out at a time. When Brian was told he would have to wait behind until the others returned, he immediately refused. There was no way he was staying alone in that clearing. As they rushed away from the campsite, the silence of the forest was replaced by something far more disturbing. From somewhere among the trees came the sound of branches snapping and breaking, keeping pace with them as they moved along the trail. The group realized they might not be the only ones leaving the woods that night, and with the nearest safe place still far away, they had to find somewhere else to go, fast.
And we freaked out. We're like, we're getting out of here. Well, with a three-wheeler, I was bringing one person out there at a time, and then the gear. So I told Brian, I'll come back and get you. And he's like, hell no, he ain't coming back to get me. And he jumped on the three-wheeler. As we were driving out of the woods, we started hearing branches and stuff breaking as we were driving out. Well, Andy's house is way too far away. And I said, is there anywhere we can go? And there was these girls that lived out there. They live right down the road, about maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles. So when we got out of the forest, we made a right and we drove. Well, the way their property is set up is when you drive up, you make it a right in, and there was a house over here on the left, and they had a building like they built. It was an addition, and it was 2 stories. We ditched the three-wheeler into the bushes, and we ran to her room, and we ran up the steps, and we knocked on her door. Now, remind you, it's late at night.
Later that night, after escaping the darkness of the woods, they believed the terrifying experience was finally behind them. As they tried to calm themselves, Brian suddenly looked out the window and noticed something moving across the field. At first, they assumed it was a person wandering outside, but the longer they watched, the more that explanation began to fall apart. The figure moved in a way unlike anything they had ever seen. It began circling the field, repeating the same path again and again. It wasn't running like a frightened animal. It wasn't moving without purpose. Its movements appeared strange and deliberate, leaving them unable to understand what they were witnessing. Then, during its final pass, the figure suddenly changed direction and moved toward a nearby storage building. That was the moment everything changed. The structure stood nearly 7 feet tall, and the figure was almost the same height. As it stopped beside the building, they realized just how massive it truly was. Slowly, it raised one long arm, placed it across the roof, and turned its attention toward the window. Everyone inside froze, because whatever was standing in that field was not just unusually large, It was something they could not explain.
And Brian was looking out the window and he goes, "There's a drunk guy running around out in your field." And we're like, "What?" So we went up to the window and this thing was in the field. I don't know why it was doing this, but it was running in a circle. And it did it like 3 times. It was just like running in a circle. And then on this last loop around, it jotted up to the shed, which is like a shed you put mowers and stuff in. It's probably like a 7-foot shed, and it was as tall as a shed. When that happened, we all backed up. We're like, "What the hell is that?" And it set its arm up on the shed like that, and it just looked up at us. And at that point, we all got super scared because we knew it was big. And the shed was 7 foot, and this thing was just about as tall as a shed.
As the night slowly passed, no one was able to sleep. The fear of what they had witnessed stayed with them, and the image of that massive figure in the field remained impossible to forget. Years later, while visiting his mother in Louisiana, James finally decided to tell her the story. One evening, she was watching Unsolved Mysteries, when suddenly her voice came from the other room. Curious, he walked in and saw the screen showing a segment about the mysterious Miaka skunk ape case. The moment he saw the images, his entire memory came rushing back. The size, the shape, the unbelievable presence. It was all too familiar. As discussed in investigations by Bigfoot Stacy, the creature was described as a massive primate-like figure resembling something from another time. A prehistoric-looking giant with a powerful build and a strange, human-like appearance. For years, James struggled to describe what they encountered that night, but seeing those images gave him a chilling realization, because what he was looking at on the screen looked exactly like the creature that had been standing in that Florida field.
So, as the night passed, we all stayed up. We were all freaked out. I told the story to my mother, and this is in Louisiana. I was down visiting, and she was in her bedroom watching Unsolved Mysteries. Well, Unsolved Mysteries had a case of the Miaka skunk ape, and my mom was yelling from the other room. She's like, "James, get in here." She's like, "Oh my God, it's the skunk ape. What you were talking about is on TV, like right now." And Unsolved Mysteries is a huge thing. So I looked at it, and when I seen the pictures that they were showing on the TV, it automatically jolted me back to exactly what we seen that night. This thing is like a primate. When I seen it, it looked like a big orangutan. I mean, like prehistoric orangutan, huge, massive, massive. When I seen that, I'm like, now do you see? That's exactly what we seen out there, was that creature. And to this day, I've never forgot about it.
Was it an unknown creature hiding in the Florida wilderness? Or is there another explanation for what he and his friends witnessed? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Nearly a year ago, a group of female Sasquatch researchers entered the remote forests of Washington for an overnight investigation unlike any they had experienced before. Their goal was to create a relaxed and open environment where researchers could focus on documenting possible Sasquatch activity without distractions. Bringing together experienced investigators from Washington and Oregon, they traveled to a secluded location near Hoodport, deep within the wilderness. But as the investigation unfolded, the peaceful atmosphere began to change. Strange sounds, unusual activity, and unexplained moments started emerging from the surrounding forest, turning what began as a simple research trip into a night filled with mystery. What they encountered there would leave them searching for answers long after they returned home.
Welcome to Salish Sasquatch, where we share evidence as well as encounters. Almost a year ago, my friend Missy and I began planning a women's only camp out in Washington State. The reason we wanted to have just women is we wanted to create an atmosphere that was less threatening, a little bit more feminine, and just really chill vibes. So we gathered some of the best female researchers from the state, including one from Oregon, and we headed up to our friend Leslie King's Airbnb up on Down Mountain, which is in Hoodsport, Washington.
Almost immediately after arriving at the remote location, the investigation took an unexpected turn. While documenting their experience for Salish Sasquatch, two researchers heard a strange vocal coming from the woods below, a sound that seemed part bark and part howl. The unusual call echoed through the forest, stopping them in their tracks as they realized they had both heard the same unexplained sound. With no clear answer to what had come from the darkness, the mystery surrounding the area had already begun from the very first moments.
As soon as we got there, a few women heard an interesting vocal.
So Jamie and I were walking over to our cabin, or to my cabin, to put my stuff away, and it's overlooking the ravine. And we were both walking, but we heard something coming from there that sounded kind of barky, howly like, and then then there was another noise after, but since we were kind of walking, we didn't really, I don't know, we just both heard it, and we can't explain what it was.
It stopped us in our tracks.
It
though.
stopped
we
us.
stopped and we were like,
We both looked at each other like, did you hear that?
The first night was pretty quiet. There was some interesting sounds, but nothing that you'd want to write home about. Definitely nothing that you'd want to make videos about.
Their final night in the forest became the turning point of the entire investigation. Around 8:15 p.m., a powerful tree fall shattered the calm and pushed them to begin recording the surrounding area. What followed was a series of unexplained moments captured both outside and inside the cabin, evidence that would later draw the attention of respected Bigfoot researchers Doug Hychek and David Ellis. As the night continued, strange activity unfolded around the property, creating a timeline filled with unusual sounds, mysterious movements, and events that left everyone searching for a possible explanation behind what had happened deep in the forest.
The next night was our last night there. The night actually started with the tree fall around 8:15 p.m. and that's when we deployed audio. We heard a few interesting things, but again, nothing to write home about. That night turned out to be very interesting. I'm gonna go through the whole timeline with you. Throughout the video, you're gonna see a few videos that the girls captured, including one from inside the cabin where this incident took place. And then you will hear from Doug Hychek and David Ellis. Both of these people are very credible men in the Bigfoot community and very well respected.
Determined to capture whatever might be moving through the area, they surrounded the property with audio recorders. Each device was carefully placed near locations linked to previous unexplained activity. The ravine where strange sounds had been heard, the cabin area where unusual noises were reported, and another nearby location where mysterious vocals had been detected. With the equipment set up, they moved deeper into the investigation, exploring the area and searching for answers hidden within the forest. Every recorder became another silent witness waiting for something to happen.
So we're gonna go down here. Jamie, Janice, and I are we're gonna surround the property with our audio recorders. I'm gonna put one down here because this is the ravine where we hear a lot of stuff take place. We've heard a few things back over here by Jamie's cabin, which is where we're gonna put one. And then we're gonna put one across the street where Leslie has heard vocals.
The moment they heard movement outside the cabin, everything changed. Something was circling the area, tapping on the walls, throwing small rocks, and leaving behind heavy footsteps in the darkness. With the new moon creating near total blackness, they had no way to see what was out there. Then, as they listened closely, another sound came from the forest, turning a strange night into a truly unsettling encounter.
That something was walking around the cabin, tapping on the cabin, and throwing pebbles at the cabin. And then Lydia heard footsteps. This is where we were. We're way over here. And it was a new moon yesterday. It was pitch black.
The events surrounding the cabin created a series of disturbing patterns that immediately caught the attention of those investigating the encounter. Unexplained tapping, rocks striking the structure, heavy footsteps circling the area, and deep breathing sounds unfolded one after another, matching behaviors often described in reported Sasquatch encounters. As the activity intensified, each new sound added another piece to the mystery developing around the property. With the darkness hiding whatever was moving nearby, those involved were left facing a question they could not answer. What had been watching, approaching, and moving through the forest that night? Even before the night was over, the team realized the forest seemed to be responding to their presence.
that sums up our trip at Down Mountain this weekend. Missy and my goal was to come to a place with only women, bring a couple kids, and try to just lure them that way in a non-threatening way.
What do you think was really out there in the darkness that night? A strange coincidence, an unknown animal, or something far more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments. The Cabin in the Woods channel delves into the most remote and haunting locations, uncovering stories that linger long after the cameras stop rolling. In August 2013, a couple vacationing on Vancouver Island took a secluded back road leading toward the tiny village of Port Renfrew. Surrounded on both sides by thick forest and with barely a sign of civilization, the narrow road seemed to disappear into the wilderness. During their drive, they paused by a quiet roadside creek, a seemingly ordinary moment that would soon unfold into an encounter far from ordinary, a tale the channel would later bring vividly to light.
So as I said, in August 2013, this couple was on vacation on Vancouver Island. They were driving this rather obscure back road toward a tiny hamlet called Port Renfrew. During our trip, my wife and daughter and I drove this same road, and we also visited Port Renfrew. And I can tell you that this particular road is small and narrow and lined with dense forest on either side. And really, not much else. Zero signs of civilization.
The couple, no strangers to wandering deep into the wilderness, decided to follow a nearly dry creek bed, hoping it would guide them safely through the dense forest. Barely a couple hundred feet in, the sudden sound of snapping branches ahead made them pause. Through the shadows, a towering figure appeared, upright, swaying slightly, with a cone-shaped head and broad, imposing shoulders. It was a presence unlike anything they had encountered, leaving them frozen between awe and fear as they tried to comprehend what they were seeing.
They had walked only about 200 feet into the tree line along this creek bed when they suddenly heard branches breaking up ahead. They looked 75 to 100 feet further into the forest in the direction they were going, and that's when they saw this large, upright figure. The figure was standing bipedally, they said, and swaying back and forth. The couple said it looked like it had a cone-shaped head and broad, bulky shoulders.
The couple insisted that what they were seeing couldn't be a bear. Wendy, walking slightly ahead, suddenly stopped and gestured back to her partner, drawing his gaze toward a shape 75 to 100 feet away. At first glance, they thought it might be an animal, but its stance was unmistakably upright, moving on two legs. Even from that distance, its head had an unusual, almost conical shape, an appearance that left the couple uneasy, realizing they were witnessing something entirely out of the ordinary.
They stressed that in their opinion, this was not a bear.
Wendy was ahead of me, and she turns around and she points, and I looked up into the distance, way in the distance. It was about 75 to 100 feet ahead of us. You could see something in the distance. At first we thought it was a bear, but it seemed more bipedal. So it seemed more upright. It appeared to have kind of a conish.
The couple could just make out the shape of its head, tapered and sloping, with a broad, almost flat forehead that suggested a surprising intelligence. Its back looked thick and powerful, and one massive shoulder jutted into view, the arm disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Every feature hinted at something extraordinary, a creature far beyond anything they had ever expected to encounter.
Examine and scrub back and forth through these areas, you can see that sloping, cone-shaped head and the rather flat, somewhat horizontal forehead, very reminiscent of gorilla cranium shapes. We've also got what looks like a thickly muscled back and what really strongly appears to be a shoulder with the upper portion of what would be the creature's right arm hanging down out of view.
The creature's face bore a striking resemblance to Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film. Todd Gatewood's restoration, made solely from the original footage, revealed uncanny similarities in facial features, posture, and the way it seemed to glance back. The image carried a chilling sense, as if the forest had quietly replayed a moment from decades ago.
But that face strongly resembles the face of Patty, the subject of the famous Patterson-Gimlin film, particularly in this enhanced frame done by photo archivist Todd Gatewood. This is an undoctored frame, simply enhanced using the original visual information captured on Roger Patterson's camera. No AI was used in this restoration by Todd Gatewood. And look at the similarities, not just in facial features, but in overall shape, in impression, and in the fact that both Patty and the subject of this 2013 footage from Port Renfrew appear to be turning their full bodies.
There was a faint, musty odor in the air, subtle, but noticeable. At first, it might have been mistaken for a bear, but its size and shape quickly suggested otherwise. Even from a distance, it appeared massive, with broad shoulders that hinted at a strength far beyond any ordinary animal.
There was actually kind of a musty smell, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't strong. I would say it was kind of subtle. I don't know if bears stink. I mean, somebody says, oh, it was a black bear. I don't think it was a black bear. I've seen black bears before.
No, it wasn't black.
It didn't. It seemed quite big. And she's looking through the camera and zooming in on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it from a distance. But it appeared to be quite big, and it seemed to have shoulders on it. That's what it looked like to me.
The identity of the figure remained a complete mystery. Reactions to the footage were split. Some dismissed it outright, while others were captivated. The discussion it sparked only deepened the intrigue, leaving viewers debating what had truly been captured. Although they emerged from the forest unharmed, the question of what they saw remains unanswered. Was it merely an unusual animal, or something far more extraordinary watching from the shadows? A child's scream cut through the trees near Klingman's Dome, and within seconds, hikers were pulling out their phones. It was 2024, at the highest point in Tennessee, roughly 6,644 feet above sea level, along one of the most heavily trafficked trails in the Great Smoky Mountains. A small group had stopped mid-hike when something in the tree line caught their attention. Voices rose fast, confused, urgent, overlapping. Someone was already recording before most of the group even understood what they were looking at. The child's scream wasn't playful. It was the kind of sound that makes adults stop walking and start looking. Cameras came up, people pointed.
Bigfoot. Do you see it? Look at it. Right.
Whatever was in the trees wasn't moving, but it was clearly holding everyone's attention, and nobody was laughing. As more phones turned toward the woods, the footage zoomed in, and that's when the shape became harder to explain away. A tall figure stood motionless among the trees, upright, still, watching, or simply waiting. It was impossible to tell which. One member of the group offered the first guess anyone dared to say out loud. It looked like it could be a bear. But bears don't stand like that. This figure was on two legs, holding its posture with a stillness that didn't match anything in the group's experience with wildlife. The footage, recorded on a hiker's phone and later shared online, quickly caught attention because of exactly how ordinary the moment felt, right up until it didn't. This wasn't a remote trail camera catching something in the dead of night. This was broad daylight, a busy trail, a crowd of witnesses, and a shape that refused to explain itself. The person filming kept the camera locked on the figure, clearly trying to get a clean, stable shot as the group debated in the background, bear, hoax, something else entirely. What makes the footage unsettling isn't dramatic movement. It's the opposite. The figure doesn't run, it doesn't charge. It simply stands there among the trees, upright and still, while a crowd of strangers point cameras at it from a distance. No growl, no crashing brush, no obvious explanation, just a tall, two-legged shape holding its ground at one of the most visited overlooks in the entire park.
What's he doing?
Clingman's Dome sees hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, and sightings like this are rare enough that when one surfaces with multiple witnesses and multiple phones rolling at once, it's hard to dismiss outright. The group never got close enough to confirm what they were looking at. By the time the figure either moved off or the recording ended, the questions outnumbered the answers. Was it a bear standing upright for a few unusual seconds? Or was it something the trail rarely gives up a clear look at, caught here in broad daylight by sheer chance? What do you think was standing in those trees? This next one comes from the YouTube channel NVTV, and what makes it interesting isn't big reactions or anything extreme, it's just the way everything slowly starts to feel a little different. It starts at night near a parked vehicle, and at first it feels like just a normal recording. Then something shifts and breaks that calm feeling. The person filming suddenly sounds confused, like something happened that he didn't see coming. You can hear it in his voice while he tries to make sense of what's around him. He slowly moves the camera through the dark, focusing on one spot ahead, trying to figure out what he's actually looking at.
Camera shut off. It just shut off. And there's the ball again. Look, there's only one, dude. There's only one left. No, there's two. I'm sorry. There's two. Okay. That's my way out. That's my way out. Oh, okay. What is that? You guys see it? It's redder than red, and it's...
I won't describe what appears on screen because this is one of those clips where the reveal works better if you notice it yourself. Just pay attention to how his tone changes. He keeps asking questions out loud, almost like he needs someone else to confirm what he's seeing. There's a moment where he steps back toward his vehicle, and you can hear that he's no longer comfortable standing there.
Dogs around my car. There's one, like scratchy scratches, but maybe, I don't know. It's dirty, I gotta get it washed, but I don't know where to even start looking, dude. Oh my god. Alright, guys. I'm gonna pack up and...
Later on, the footage shifts to an evening walk in the woods with a father and his son. At first, they're just walking and chatting like anyone out exploring a trail. After a bit, their pace starts to slow, and they keep glancing off to one side, almost like something down the slope quietly grabbed their attention. They don't rush, they don't overreact, they just become more careful with each step.
Me and my son are getting the strange feeling like we shouldn't go any more past that log and that bowed tree. There seems to be something walking down to our right, down in that valley. There's multiple tree breaks everywhere, as you can see. And I am gonna heed everybody's advice. Get out of here. There's eye shine down there.
When a reflection appears deeper in the brush, they try to hold their light steady and focus on that exact spot. The father points things out quietly, guiding his son's attention, and you can hear that he wants to be sure before saying anything certain. As they continue along the trail, they start noticing objects placed high up in trees nearby. Instead of jumping to conclusions, they examine them closely and talk through what might explain it.
Okay, my son picked out the trash up in the tree. Don is reaching up and he still has another 3-4 foot to reach to it. Let me roll in here. Yeah, I would say that's about what? 10 to 12? 10 to 12 foot up. Looks like a beer can and it's wedged into a branch. It's stabbed with a branch. Let me pan in so you can see this. There, you'll probably see better there.
And I told Tony I once found 5 of those in a row.
Wow.
And we found the second one that we're going to show you next.
That's what makes this one worth watching. The reactions feel real. The pacing feels natural. So as you watch, focus on how they respond more than what they claim. Then tell me, what do you think is really going on there? On Animal Planet, the investigation moves along the shadowed banks of the Neneska River, where unanswered questions hang thick in the night air. BFRO investigators trace the river's winding path, while the rest of the team gathers at a town hall, listening to witnesses whose chilling accounts could finally narrow the search. Ken and Gary recall a moment of sudden dread. Someone, or something, was down there. When the spotlight lifted, a figure appeared, then vanished into the darkness in an instant. There was no doubt, no hesitation. In the spotlight stood a figure, uniform in color, solid, and impossibly out of place. It moved with a calm that felt wrong, each step deliberate and unhurried.
While I continue my investigation along the Neneska River, the rest of the team is meeting with witnesses from our town hall in hopes of narrowing down this search.
He said something to the effect of, "We're not alone," or "somebody down here." And when I looked up, I seen a figure in the spotlight. 3 steps and it was gone. No mistaking it.
No mistaking.
It was one color. It was walking as a, steady pace, and 3 steps, it was gone.
Then, as suddenly as it appeared, it slipped back into the darkness, leaving only the weight of its absence. Later, Ken and Gary recounted the moment with absolute conviction. Every detail reinforced the same chilling truth. Something beyond explanation had crossed their path that night. At the site, the investigator retraced the path described by the witnesses. The stride was measured, powerful, deliberate, nothing frantic or erratic. As the motion was recreated, it became undeniable. The gait was unnatural, unlike any human run.
Yeah, it was not a man.
Ken and Gary responded to my line of questioning in a very, very natural way. Their answers were spontaneous and had a very honest ring to all of them. Everything they described totally jives with them seeing a Sasquatch that night.
Stop me when I get to the right place, okay?
Since Bobo's not here and we don't have the team member that most approximates the size and disposition of a Bigfoot, I'm gonna step in and see if I can duplicate the speed as it moved across the road.
From the witness's view, the creature crossed the road in full view. No obstruction, no fleeting glimpse. Whatever moved there was seen clearly, leaving an impression that refuses to fade. Testing the distance made the scale impossible to ignore. It took several human steps to cover what the creature crossed in barely a few.
So from here, you saw it running, I presume, this direction?
Yes. It was a long, brisk stride.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can replicate that.
Okay.
Yes, that was a similar gait.
Looking at where the creature walked from their perspective, there's no doubt that they had an excellent view as it walked across the road.
The realization sank in quietly, but with certainty. The investigator no longer questioned the account. One explanation fit the stride, the reach, and the presence. Bigfoot.
There were no obstructions whatsoever. They said that my speed matched pretty well to what they saw. However, it took me 5 or 6 steps to cover the same distance that the creature covered in only 3. I know what they saw. It was a Bigfoot.
Sightings like this are rare everywhere, and in Kansas, almost unheard of, making this encounter extraordinary. Bait was carefully placed at the site, each piece fitted with tracking technology.
So how was that?
It has to be a Bigfoot. I mean, it has to be, which is cool.
We are very, very lucky to have seen one here. Very few people get to see them at all.
If anything touched it, the signal would reveal its path. The location was perfect. Intersecting game trails marked frequent wildlife movement. If something powerful and curious lurked in the shadows, this setup was designed to draw it out and leave a trace. With the trap in place, only one element remained.
Well,
So how many Bigfoots did you find?
Exactly 0, but there's no doubt what they're moving along, the Neneska. The special thing about that river, no matter how dry it gets, it's got water running through it. And because of that, all the animals will concentrate in there.
The unknown presence they hoped to lure in. The bait, left untouched for days, had spread its scent through the freezing air, catching the attention of nearby wildlife. Multiple food sources were placed strategically, one already showing signs of activity. The team decided to move in together, then reassess at the site.
If we want to have our own encounter with a Bigfoot, unfortunately, the Neneska River is almost 100 miles long. Obviously, that's way too much ground to try to cover in one night, so we need to narrow down our search grid to find the perfect spot to focus on this critical waterway.
The town hall meeting was held at the Wichita Aviation Museum. And those guys said they'd be willing to take me up into a plane to survey the area. And I figured from up there, I can direct you guys to the right spot down below.
Yeah, the most covers what we're going to be looking for.
And if nothing else, I get to ride in the cool 1943 plane.
Yeah.
Whatever had been circling the area might finally be close. As the team neared the bait, one question hung in the cold night air.
Clip originally wanted to drop these meat bombs out of the sky with GPS as a track where squatches might be able to pick them up, but the FAA wouldn't let him do it. Seeing Clip knowing that he was up in that plane, this cool looking plane, he's flying up there, I was pretty jealous. But I wouldn't fit in that plane, so nothing I could do.
Would the shadow haunting the river finally reveal itself, or slip back into the darkness, leaving only whispers of what might have been?